Hi, welcome to the video, and today we are going to be talking about why a little pharmaceutical company called Intellia jumped over 50% in the weekend, and you can see it was trading just under $90, and come Monday it opened at $130. Now this is a really big deal. This is a company that ARK is actually invested in. It's their 18th largest holding. In this video, I'm going to explain exactly the breakthrough they had, which is regarding gene editing. So we're going to go over the exact news that shot this stock up and why this is a space that you should definitely be invested in, and why Kathy has called potentially the next FANG stocks. So the next FANG stocks are the next Facebook, Apple, Google, Netflix. It's gonna be a very big stock. I went through a couple of articles about what exactly happened, and I think this one is the clearest. And I'm just gonna read part of it and break it down for you. This is the first successful in-human gene editing with CRISPR that we know of, and it seems to work really well. Is this a big deal? So Intellia is a biopharmaceutical company that is using the CRISPR technology. So these are two separate companies, but they're partnering together. CRISPR is the company that invented the gene editing technique. The response is the answer is an emphatic yes. This new data, even though from just a handful of patients, shows not only that this new technology works in humans, but that it is also very safe, at least at the 2 doses that were tested in this trial. It's important because it's the first time that scientists have been able to modify DNA in a patient's cells in a very specific way. This fascinating technology, very simply, is a molecular scissors Cas9 that is led by a guide RNA to cut a specific part of a DNA. Bacteria use this method to inactivate invading viruses. In Intellia's trial, the system is used to deactivate the gene for a misfolded protein known as transthyretin, or TTR, which can build up in patients in some rare cases, leading to neurological and heart damage that is eventually fatal. So one of the things we need to be worried about with gene editing technology is if you edit one part of the gene, it could possibly affect others, and there could be unintended side effects. So the more specific that this technology is, meaning it could just target the issue, that is what we really need for it to be effective and safe. This experiment showed that it could actually be quite specific. Why might it work better than other forms of genetic therapy that are already approved? The beauty of what Intellia has done is that it has produced a highly specific knockdown of one disease gene, though more data is needed to prove that it is 100% specific in humans. The other way that people have been tackling this type of disease involves either using antibodies targeted against a protein or some form of RNA silencing or antisense methods to stop the production of a protein. Indeed, there is already an approved drug from Alnylam for the rare disease that Intellia is targeting, but these are drugs that need continuous therapy, whereas the gene editing methods should be one and done. And this is really the key why this is such a huge breakthrough. It's because when you target the source of the issue, which is literally the gene, and it's really crazy to think about, people are really prone to being born with different diseases. Even cancer is gene related. Now, instead of just dealing with the symptoms of a chronic illness, if you can actually target the gene, which is the blueprint of how we're made, and fix the issue at the source, you potentially don't need all this medicine anymore. And the reason this company, what they're doing is such a big deal is because imagine if you could target the gene that eliminates certain types of cancers. The moment that were to happen, I mean, that would change the world. Not even talking about the stock price, but as an investor, can you imagine being invested in the company that is able to cure cancer? Essentially, that is the potential of what these companies are doing. Now, there's still a long road ahead from doing that, but just from this small example, it shows us what is actually possible. Imagine going in and taking this treatment and then you're cured versus having to constantly take medicine for the rest of your life. And that essentially is the big difference in what's happening here. You could essentially take the medicine that was already available and treat the symptoms of this disease pretty well. but that is a lifetime thing. So for the nerds, specifically what is going on, Intellia administered a single dose of this therapy called the NTLA 2001, and it achieved an 87% mean reduction in serum TTR protein levels. There was a maximum reduction of 96% by day 28. This is highly encouraging because the current available method of care, the alnilams Onpattro, typically achieves TTR reductions of 80%. Now, when you have this disease that they were targeting, basically your TTR levels are too high. So the more TTR you can reduce, that's a good thing. And essentially this new treatment did a little bit better than its current standard of care. And Onpattro requires dosing every 3 weeks, whereas the Intellia 2001 is a one-time treatment. The safety profile for the Intellia also looked good. Intellia and Regeneron, who's another partner, stated that there were no serious adverse events reported as of 28 days after treatment. Now, what are some potential problems? This sort of editing is permanent, which is a good thing, but that also sounds scary. Is there any reason it might be problematic? The response is not really, especially if scientists prove that it is indeed as specific as the technology is designed to be. The problem is that the human body is very complex, and there will always be some risk that it works much better in some than others. Indeed, the data showed that the effects from the same dose varied among 3 people. One good thing about Intellia technology is that it uses lipid nanoparticles to deliver its payload, similar to those used in the mRNA vaccines from Pfizer, BioNTech, and Moderna. Are there any other additional safety concerns? So there are going to be some risks, but what this article is saying is how they're approaching it right now, especially once you get to human trials, is there are actually very few risks at the moment in this specific scenario. And I personally believe that eventually they can do this very safely. But I think the most important thing in this development is actually going to be education, because me just reading this, there's some things I don't understand. I imagine you sitting at home or in the subway, wherever you are listening to this, this is all very, very scary, and it's not going to be easy for the lay person to want to take this treatment, especially if they don't understand it. So I think that's going to be one of the biggest hurdles. And these companies need to be transparent with any potential risks, because it really is scary. And like I said before, the key is, can we really target these specific problems? Because the body is so complex, if we target one thing, maybe it's going to adversely affect something else. Just because there's something negative in your body and you treat that thing, who knows if that negative thing was keeping some other disease or illness at bay. There's just really complex relationships with genes and different things going on in the body, just like how some bacteria are good for you and some bacteria are bad for you. It's just, we should be careful. And I know that people are going to have problems with this, especially because it's so new and it's something they don't understand. But for the sake of advancement, I think this is inevitable, at least in the current direction it's going. Even if there are risks, imagine if it could end a loved one's pain, like truly end it, because it's targeting the source. Even if there's a tiny risk, I think once that type of therapy is available and we see one or two or just a handful of people that have completely turned their life around in a way that was never possible before, I think it will really quickly catch on, especially when nowadays there's so many new diseases ravaging us. They've always been around, but like obesity, depression, these are pretty modern day issues. We didn't have the luxury to be this fat. We didn't even have the luxury to be this depressed, but then there are also genetic markers and variables related to a lot of these issues. And maybe someday they could all be solved. I would still recommend that you exercise and do everything you can. You don't want to just go straight and target for the genes, but I'm really excited to see where this goes. Now, if you want to invest in this, if you're like me and you are not a biopharmaceutical expert, I would just recommend getting into ARC-G. EV companies, little bit simpler to understand. You can invest in the companies you like, but once you get to this very technical science, future DNA stuff that I don't understand, I would rather just invest in ARKG, which is a fund. These funds are actively managed, so they're always adjusting their positions, and just let the experts take care of it. And of course, there's a little bit of a fee investing in this fund, but I think it's worth it. Yeah, that's it for today. I personally am not invested in Intellia yet, but I do have some CRISPR shares. But let me know what you think. Do you think this is the future? Are you going to invest in some of these companies or the ARKG fund? Let me know. This is Green Knight Trading with Squires of Pub Knights. Thank you all so much for watching. I appreciate you, and I'll see you soon.